The little candle that stayed awake for the night. Inside a little cottage at the edge of a quiet town, where silver stars appeared at night and soft rain settled down, there stood a little candle upon a wooden table bright. She had a tiny golden flame that warmed the darkest night. Each evening, when the sun went down behind the distant hill, the cottage became quiet and still, and everything grew still. The little candle watched the moon rise slowly in the sky. She watched the sleepy stars close and heard the night birds fly. I wonder why the night is dark, the little candle said. Perhaps the world needs little lights to help it go to bed. The old clock upon the wall ticked softly through the room. Every night must have its darkness before the morning's bloom. The candle listened carefully. She liked the old clock's voice. It sounded calm and patient, like someone making a choice. One evening, a terrible storm arrived across the town. The wind pushed against the windows, the rain came pouring down, thunder rolled across the rooftops, lightning crossed the sky. The little candle trembled softly. Oh, I'm scared tonight. The cottage lights went suddenly out. The room became completely dark. The candle looked around the room and saw a frightening spark. Then someone struck a match. A tiny flame appeared. The little candle caught the flame. Her golden light grew clear. She looked around the cottage. The shadows moved away. A little flame was glowing in the middle of the grey. Outside, the storm was raging. Inside, the candle stayed. She watched the curtains dancing. She listened while the rain played. A little girl came downstairs. She carried a blanket tied. Is everyone awake? She asked. Yes, her mother replied. The girl sat beside the table. She looked at the candle's glow. Thank you for staying with us when everything is dark below. The candle felt important. She had never heard such words. She was only a little candle, but she could comfort frightening hearts. The storms continued for hours. The wind became more strong. The little candle kept on glowing. She wondered how long she would last. What if my flame disappears? She quietly asked the night. The old clock answered softly, then you will have given light. The candle thought about those words. He watched the family sleep. The little girl rested peacefully. The candle promised to keep watch. So she stayed awake all through the darkest midnight, all through the pouring rain. She watched the little cottage and waited through the storm again. She saw the mother's tired eyes. She saw the father's worried face. She saw the little girl sleeping in her warm and quiet place. The candle whispered softly, let them sleep, let them rest. Sometimes someone must stay awake so others can feel safe. Hours passed, the storm moved farther away, the rain became a whisper, the thunder disappeared, the candle's flame was smaller now. She felt herself grow tired, but through the window she saw something beautiful. A single star, then another, then another. The clouds were slowly opening. The candle smiled. Morning is coming. The old clock began to tick a little louder than before. Yes, it said, night never stays forever. The candle watched the sky. The darkness slowly changed. Black became deep blue became purple, purple became pink, and then gold. The first sunlight touched the window, the candle's flame became almost invisible. The little girl woke. She looked toward the table. The candle was nearly finished. Oh, she whispered, thank you. The candle smiled. She had stayed awake through the longest night. She had given all the light she had to give. And now the morning had arrived. The little girl carefully moved the candle beside the window. There the sunlight touched her dress now, the girl said. You don't have to shine anymore. The candle felt peaceful. She finally understood. Candle doesn't need to burn forever to matter. Sometimes one small flame is enough for one difficult night. And sometimes the light we give helps someone else find morning. The little candle closed her tiny flame and rested quietly in the sun. But her story did not end because later that day the little girl found another candle. She placed it beside the first. I'll keep this one for tonight, she said. The old candle smiled. Her light had become a lesson, and the lesson had become another light. That evening the sun went down again. The moon rose above the town. The little girl lit the new candle. A warm golden glow filled the room, and although the first candle could no longer shine, she remained beside the window, quietly remembering the night when she had stayed awake. She remembered the storm, she remembered the frightened family, she remembered the tiny girl who had tagged her, and she understood something she had never known before. Light is not made by how large it is made by how much darkness it helps someone endure. And somewhere outside another window began to glow, then another. The town slowly filled with little lights, not because the night had disappeared, but because people had learned that darkness becomes easier when someone is willing to shine. The little candle smiled, perhaps that was why the night existed, not only to remind the world that morning would come, but to give every little light a chance to be seen. And beneath the peaceful stars, the town rested. The storm had passed, the night had softened, and somewhere inside the quiet cottage, a tiny flame was beginning to glow again. The new candle softly glowed beside the window bright, while moonbeams crossed the wooden floor and painted silver light. The little girl sat quietly beside the candle's flame. She remembered the stormy night and whispered the old candle's name. Little candle, you were brave when I was scared and small. You stayed awake throughout the night and gave your light to all. The old candle rested near the glass and flame no longer bright, but somehow in the little girl's heart she still carried her light. The new candle flickered gently. Why does she keep her here? The little girl smiled softly because she taught me something dear. What did she teach you? The candle asked. The girl looked toward the sky. That even the smallest light can help a frightened heart get by. The candle listened carefully. Her flame began to glow. She wanted to become a light that others came to know. Days passed peacefully. The storm became a memory. The cottage windows opened wide. Birds returned to every tree. The garden slowly woke again. Flowers began to bloom. The little girl planted lavender beside the kitchen room. She planted roses near the gate. She planted daisies too. And every morning after rain, the garden sparkled with dew. The old candle watched the garden from the quiet windowsill. She could no longer shine at night, but she felt useful still. One evening, the little girl found an old wooden box. Inside were candles, watches, inside were candles, matches, and things from long ago. She carried the box downstairs. Grandma, look what I found. Her grandmother opened it. Inside was a candle, small and round. This belonged to your grandfather, the grandmother softly said. He used to light it every evening when the house was quiet. The little girl held it gently while her grandmother smiled. Because it believed a peaceful light makes a peaceful heart. The girl placed the candle beside the others. Soon there were three, the old candle, the new candle, and the grandfather's candle. Three small lights, three different stories, three different nights. Yet all of them carried the same gentle purpose to make the darkness softer. That night the wind began to blow again. The girl looked outside. Clouds gathered over the town. She remembered the old storm. For a moment she felt afraid. Then she looked at the candles. She smiled. I know what to do. She lit the new candle, then the second, then the third. Three golden flames appeared. The cottage became warm. The girl sat between them. Outside rain began to fall, but this time she was not frightened. She listened to the rain, she listened to the wind, she listened to the quiet rhythm of drops upon the roof. The candles flickered, one flame moved gently, another grew tall, the third became small, yet all three continued to shine. The girl whispered, "Thank you." The candles seemed to answer, "We are here." The night continued. A neighbor knocked upon the door. Their little boy was afraid of thunder. The girl opened the door. "Come inside." The family entered. The candles filled the room with warmth. The little boy looked at them. "Are you scared of the storm?" The girl shook her head. "Not anymore." "Why?" She pointed toward the candles. "Because I know that darkness doesn't mean we are alone." The little boy sat beside her. The storm grew louder, but the candles remained. The children watched their flames, they counted the seconds between thunder, they told stories, they laughed quietly, and slowly the fear disappeared. The little candle that had once stayed awake through the storm seemed to glow inside the girl's heart. She had learned her lesson and now she was sharing it. The rain continued until midnight, then the thunder moved away. The clouds appear open, moonlight turned. The little boy looked through the window. Look, a star had appeared. The girl smiled. Morning will come. The old clock ticked softly. Always, it whispered. The children became sleepy. They curled beneath their blankets. The candles continued to glow, not because anyone had asked them to, but because shining was what they knew to do. Eventually, the first pale light appeared beyond the hills. The candles grew quiet. The girl gently covered them. "Rest now." She opened the curtains. Sunlight entered the room. The storm was gone. The garden was wet. The flowers were covered with drops. Birds began to sing. The town slowly woke. The little girl stepped outside. She looked at the sky, then she looked back at the candles in the window. She finally understood something that the old candle had known all along. There will always be night, there will always be storm, there will always be moments when someone feels afraid. But there will also always be little lights, a friend who listens, a hand that helps, a voice that says you are not alone. A warm home, a kind word, a peaceful song, a quiet prayer, a gentle smile, these are all little candles. They may seem small, they may not stop the storm, but they can make the darkness a little easier to bear. Years passed, the little girl grew older. She carried the lesson with her wherever she went. Whenever someone felt lost, she tried to be a little light. Whenever someone was afraid, she stayed beside them. Whenever someone felt lonely, she listened, and whenever the world seemed dark, she remembered the candle. One winter evening, the girl had grown into a young woman. She returned to the old cottage. The little candles were still there. She placed a new candle beside them. "This one is for tomorrow," she whispered. She lit it. The room filled with golden light. She looked at the old candle. Its wax was worn, its wick was dark, yet she smiled. "You gave everything you had." She placed her hand beside it. And because you did, I learned how to shine. Outside, snow began falling. The village was quiet. Windows glowed in the darkness. One by one, little lights appeared. The young woman looked out. She imagined all the people inside those homes. Some were happy, some were tired, some were lonely, some were worried, some were dreaming. And perhaps somewhere someone was sitting in darkness waiting for morning. She whispered, "May they find a little light." The candle beside her flickered. The flame moved gently as if answering, "They will." The night grew deeper, but the cottage was warm. The candles continued shining, and far beyond the village, the first hint of dawn waited beneath the horizon. The young woman smiled. She no longer feared the night. She understood its purpose. Night gave the stars a place to shine. Storms taught people to appreciate shelter. Darkness taught hearts to recognize light. And difficult moments taught us how precious kindness can be. The little candle had once wondered whether her small flame mattered. Now her light lived in someone else, and perhaps that was the greatest kind of light there was. A light that continues after the flame is gone, a kindness that survives after the moment has passed, a lesson that travels from one heart to another. The young woman closed her eyes. She listened to the soft snow falling outside. The candle flickered beside her, and somewhere between midnight and morning, she whispered the words she had learned long ago. The darkness may be long, but it will never last forever. The candle glowed, the stars shimmered, the village slept, and slowly, very slowly, the sky began to brighten. A pale golden line appeared beyond the hills. Morning was coming, and every little light had done its part. So that was a poem. Now the message of the poem. Even the smallest light can make a difference in someone's darkest moment. The little candle could not stop the storm. It could not control the wind. It could not make the rain disappear. It could only do one simple thing, shine. And sometimes that is enough. In our own life, we may sometimes feel that what we have to offer is too small. Kind word may seem small. A smile may seem small. Listening to someone may seem small. Helping someone may seem small, but we never know how much that small kindness might mean. When someone is frightened, your presence can become a candle. When someone is lonely, your friendship can become a candle. When someone has lost hope, your encouragement can become a candle. You do not have to fix everything. You do not have to move every storm. Sometimes you only need to stay beside someone until they can see the light again. The little candle also teaches us that we do not have to shine forever. There are moments when we give everything we have, and then we need to rest. Rest is not failure, rest is part of caring. Even a candle eventually needs to become still. Even the night eventually needs to become morning. So if you are tired tonight, do not feel guilty for resting. You have permission to pause, you have permission to breathe, you have permission to let someone else hold the light for a while. And if your own light if your own night feels long, remember you are not alone. There are little lights everywhere. Sometimes they are people, sometimes they are memories, sometimes they are dreams, sometimes they are simply the quiet hope inside your heart. The darkness may feel enormous, but it only takes one small light to begin pushing it back. So be gentle with yourself, be kind to others, and whenever you can, be a little candle for someone who needs light. Because one day someone may remember your kindness long after the moment has passed. Just as the little girl remembered the candle that stayed awake through the storm, and perhaps your smallest act of kindness will become another person's courage, another person's hope, another person's morning. The night may be dark, but your light still matters. And somewhere beyond the horizon, dawn is already waiting. Hope you like the poem. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more soft spoken videos. Thank you.